Greetings! My name is Anthony Elmore. I am President and Founder of the Proud Black Buddhist World Association. My lecture today is called On Attaining Buddhahood. If you are looking to study or enter the Buddhist religion, I bring to you my over 45 years study and practice as a Buddhist. Now, in order to give you an idea about Buddhism that I practice, first let me give you a little background in history. While as a student at Hamilton High School in Memphis in 1970, I started studying a karate called Old Japanese Shotokan Karate. And in the Old Japanese Shotokan Karate, it was a combination of Japanese karate and Zen Buddhism. So my introduction into Buddhism was my studying Zen Buddhism for years. We used to meditate in icy waters. I had to break my knuckles, and we did a whole lot of crazy things during my time of practicing karate. It was Old Japanese Shotokan Karate, and I practiced Zen Buddhism. Now, we move into 1974. In 1974, we heard about some Buddhists in Memphis, Tennessee, and we went to our first Buddhist meeting, and it was so exciting because in 1974, in Memphis, Tennessee, Dr. Martin Luther King was just shot and killed six years earlier. So that was a different climate that I was brought up in. I was brought up, or I grew up, or I was born into a racially segregated society. It was the Civil Rights Act of 1964, where African Americans actually had full rights as a citizen. But when I was a kid, I grew up in a segregated place. We black people had to go to the back door of the things. We couldn't go to the theaters, the zoo. We were lived in an unjust American society. That is my background. Now, so in 1974, just 10 years after Dr. Martin Luther King got the Civil Rights Act of 1964 passed, there I was going to a Buddhist meeting, and the most interesting thing that I found at the time, that I was going to Buddhist meetings at white people's homes. And that was so unique to me because in 1974 in Memphis, Tennessee, white people did not invite black people into their homes, or there was no association. But in 1974, when I started Buddhism, there was black and there was white and there was Japanese and people of different backgrounds. In fact, we were kind of like the Obama generation. We were very diverse culture, and Buddhism was so exciting for me at that particular time. Now, let us move into 1982. In 1982, something very exciting happened to me. I became the PKA, or Professional Karate Association, World Karate Kickboxing Champion that I had won in Memphis, Tennessee. So you can imagine, there I was, a World Kickboxing Champion in 1982. In 1983, I was selected by Ebony magazine as one of the most eligible bachelors in America. So I had a whole lot of things going. In 1988, I wrote, produced, and directed a movie about my life called The Contemporary Gladiator. If you would go and just Google the word The Contemporary Gladiator or the Anthony Elmore movie, you can actually see the whole movie on YouTube. Now, let's move into 1991. In March of 1991, I wrote a letter to NSA Friends, because I joined a Buddhist organization called NSA, and I wrote a letter to NSA Friends because I had to leave the Buddhist organization. Now, what I want you to do, Google the word Anthony Elmore, letter to NSA friends. And what you would find is a documented letter as to why I left the NSA or the SGI Buddhist organization. And what you will find in the letter, you will find is this is what I wrote, quote, in NSA in Memphis, African Americans are no longer have a cultural identity, and at NSA meetings among African Americans, there is a cultural and spiritual void. Buddhism for African Americans is no longer a religion of the people, for the people, and by the people. Instead, Buddhism has gravitated to be viewed as a foreign and esoteric religion. Now, what happened to us black people who was practicing Buddhism? The Japanese did a flip on us. They revealed who they really were, and they ended up being instead of being Nichiren Buddhists, we found them to be Hindu Buddhists. See, Hindu Buddhism is a religion that's based on class and caste. Now, what you find is that we found these Japanese were a bunch of people who were like the Hindus that put black people in a class. And they have extricated all of the black culture and history of Buddhism out of their Buddhist teachings, and we found out that they were not too good of a people. Now, both the SGI and Nichiren Shoshu, they set up black people. They came to America under the guise of Nichiren Buddhism, but they practiced the racist Hindu Buddhism. The Hindu religion deals with class and caste, and they are a sanctified racist religion. The Hindu faith is mostly characterized by the use of teachings of Sanskrit. The SGI, Nichiren Shoshu, and Nichiren Shu promote the Brahmin Sanskrit that extricates black history and culture and language from Buddhist teachings. Now, please view this picture in India. The SGI, Nichiren Shoshu, and Nichiren Shu are closely associated with Brahmins. Notice in the pictures, they are in accord with the racist Brahmins. Now notice that all you see at the SGI organization in India are light-skinned Indians. The light-skinned Indians are the Hindu Brahmins, or the Brahmins in India. Now, if you study the doctrines of Nichiren Sects, they are all in accord with the racist Brahmin teachings. Let me give you a few points. Number one, they all promote Sanskrit. Number two, they all promote the white Hindu Buddha. Number three, they all promote the Vedas or Vedic history. Number four, they all promote the extrication of black Buddhist history. And number five, they never criticize the racist caste history. Now, I want you to also view something just to kind of give you an idea of association. Please view this picture of the Dalai Lama who lives in India. Now, he's receiving an award from Hindu Brahmins in 2014. Just as the Dalai Lama is associated with Hindu Buddhists, the Japanese are also associated with the Hindu Buddhists. Now, we practice the Buddhist religion of Nichiren Shonin. Now, Nichiren Shonin writes about associations. Now, there's a Gosho, and a Gosho are the letters that Nichiren wrote to his disciples. And there's a letter called Reply to San Renbo, and it reads, quote, no matter how honest and upright you may be, or how you may strive to be known as a worthy person in the secular or religious world. If you associate with evil persons, then as a natural result, you will find that in 2 or 3 instances out of 10, you are following their teachings, and in the end, you too will become an evil person. Thus, the commentary says, quote, though one may not be evil to begin with, if one associates with and is friendly with evil persons, one is bound in time to become an evil person oneself, and one's evil reputation will spread throughout the world, unquote. See, we Nichiren Buddhists challenge the racist assault the Japanese Buddhist sects perpetrate on black people via their extricating all black history and culture from the teachings of Nichiren. Now, my Gosho lecture is called On Attaining Buddhahood. Please understand that Nichiren Shonin challenged the Mahayana Buddhist sects in Japan by declaring that only the Lotus Sutra is the correct Buddhist teachings for today. Now, let's get into this Gosho, and those of you who are Buddhists, get your Gosho out and let's go into it. Let us show you a black or an African American perspective of this Gosho. Just as Martin Luther King had a different vision of what America should be, we have a different vision or an inclusive vision of what Buddhism should be. They have extricated black people out of Buddhism, but we are putting black Buddhists into it, and let us tell you or show you a Buddhist lecture of inclusion. Now, the Gosho on Attaining Buddhahood begins, quote, if you wish to free yourself from the sufferings of birth and death you have endured since time without beginning, and to attain without fail unsurpassed enlightenment in this lifetime, you must perceive the mystic truth that is originally inherent in all living beings. This truth is Myoho Renge Kyo. Chanting Myoho Renge Kyo will therefore enable you to grasp the mystic truth innate in all life. Now, the first concept that Nichiren deals with is the concept of time. He mentions time without a beginning. Now, in basic science, we learn that time is only a measure of movement. The basic science teaches us that matter can neither be created nor destroyed, only a change in form. Buddhism teaches us that we humans travel through birth and death phases of life. Now, Nichiren notes, quote, if you wish to free yourself from the sufferings of birth and death, you must perceive what? Quote, the mystic truth that is originally inherent in all living beings. Now, the question that we Buddhists deal with is this thing called mystic truth. The universe is a mystic truth. Nichiren explains that the mystic truth is Myoho Renge Kyo, and chanting Myoho Renge Kyo will enable you to grasp the mystic truth innate in all life. Now, this lecture is called Attaining Buddhahood in this lifetime. Nichiren teaches us that the essence of Buddhism is in the title, or the essence of the Lotus Sutra rather, is in the title. If you can understand the title of the Lotus Sutra, then you get life in the universe mastered. The title of the Lotus Sutra is Myoho Renge Kyo. Nichiren teaches us that chanting Myoho Renge Kyo or Namu Myoho Renge Kyo will enable you to grasp the mystic law. Now, what I want you to do, I want you to first look at a 1-minute video that I produced explaining Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, and we're going to come back and continue our lecture on attaining Buddhahood. Let's watch the video. Hello, I am Anthony Elmore. I'm going to explain to you what is Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. Nam Myoho Renge Kyo is the essence of all universal phenomena. Nam means devotion of body, mind, and spirit. Nam is a practice or devotion. Myoho means mystic law. All phenomena is Myoho or life and death. Our universe is governed by Myoho or mystic laws. Our universal phenomena is Myoho or an unexplainable law. Renge means lotus flower or cause and effect. All phenomena is a result of the law of cause and effect. Kyo means the Buddhist teachings. In a broad sense, Kyo conveys the concept that all things in the universe are the manifestation of the mystic law or teachings. Nam Myoho Renge Kyo means Shoho Jisho, or all phenomena manifest the true law. Now that you got a quick lesson on what is Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, let us read further in this Go Show. Nichiren writes, quote, "The Lotus Sutra is the king of sutras and correct in both word and principle. Its words are the ultimate reality, and this reality is the mystic law, or Myoho." Now, please understand that this is Nichiren Shonin's first letter of teaching. He tells us that the Lotus Sutra is king of sutras. Now, for those of you who do not know what a sutra is, they wrote down the Buddhist teachings on concrete tablets called a sutra. Nichiren lets us know that the Lotus Sutra is the king. He notes that it is correct in word and principle. This is very important. Just because one has a word does not mean the principle is correct. The words of the Lotus Sutra is the ultimate reality. Now, let's get into this thing called ultimate reality. Let me cite an example. We can use the word God. The question becomes, is God an ultimate reality? Now, Nichiren calls this ultimate reality Myoho, or mystic law. Now we get into the tough part. Nichiren writes. He writes, it's called the mystic law because it reveals the principle of the mutually inclusive relationship of a single moment of life and all phenomena. That is why this sutra is the wisdom of all Buddhas, unquote. Now, what I want some of you SGI, Nichiren Shoshu, and Nichiren Shu members to do, have your best person to tell you what is, or explain to you what is the mutually inclusive relationship of a single moment of life and all phenomena. This is a very, very hard principle to explain. What the hell is a mutually inclusive relationship of a single moment of life and all phenomena? I would imagine that my bad Nichiren Shushu partner, Mr. Alan Billups, he could wrap that explanation off the top of his head. Now, I'm not as smart as Alan. Now, most people cannot tell you what this means, however. Now, for example, this concept would be easy for great astrophysicists like Neil deGrasse Tyson, who's an astrophysicist, to answer this question because we are talking physics. Now, let me explain to you as best I can the mutually inclusive relationship of a single moment of life and all phenomena. Now, please understand that we teach the Lotus Sutra, the highest of the Buddhist teachings. I want you to take a look at this picture. Now, in 2008, my former Japanese priest, Shinji Iwaki. Now, this dude is in Memphis, Tennessee, dominating black people because he got a bald head, a robe, and they call him a priest. Now, these priests do not teach no Lotus Sutra. They teach Japanese culture or Brahman teachings, or how he is in a higher caste or class. Now, Reverend Iwaki, his father, did to me what is called a gojakai. He introduced me into Buddhism in 1974. That's Reverend Iwaki's daddy. Now, what they have in Nichiren Shoshu, they have a Brahman system, whereas the children become priests. And so they have this caste or this class system just like the Brahmins. Now, however, if you ask any of these priests to break down the mutually inclusive relationship of a single moment of life and all phenomena, they can't tell you that. They can't tell you anything about the Lotus Sutra. The only thing they can teach you is how to worship them, how to make themselves special, and how to make them look like a king or a god. Now, Nichiren, you just learned what Nichiren says. The Lotus Sutra is the king of all sutras. Now, let's explain this. Now, the mutually inclusive relationship of a single moment of life and all phenomena. Let me explain it. All phenomena has 10 aspects. And the 10 aspects are not governed by time and space. Time and space is only a dimension. The 10 aspects are, number 1, an appearance, a nature, an entity. Appearance and nature and entity creates a power. And a power in turn creates an influence. The influence happens because of an inherent cause. The inherent cause happens because of a relationship. And because there is a relationship, there is always a latent effect. And because there's a latent effect, you also get what is called a manifest effect. And from the manifest effect, you get what is called a consistency from the beginning to the end. Or those of you who chant, y'all saying Gongyo Hamaku Kato. What you're saying is that you are saying that the consistency from beginning to the end is that the consistency of all humans is that humans are born originally enlightened as a Buddha. That's the beginning. In the end, they're not a Buddha. Now, you have to understand that the 10 worlds or the 10 aspects is based on the law of non-substantiality, in that the 10 worlds and the 10 aspects are not static, in that they're changing, they are temporary. So now if we're going to understand the mutually inclusive relationship of single moment of life and all phenomena, we go into it. Because what happens is, Buddhism explains it in the terms, in the way of the 10 worlds. Because we have 10 worlds. That is hell, hunger, animality, anger, humanity, heaven, learning, self-realization, Bodhisattva, and Buddhahood. So you got 10 worlds, and 10 worlds are existing in 10 worlds, which is 100 worlds times 10 aspects is 1,000 worlds times the 3 realms. Now the 3 realms are, first of all, the realms of the 5 components. That is appearance. Then you get perception, conception, volition, and consciousness. Then the second realm is the realm of living beings. Then the third realm is the realm of the environment. Now, that's 3,000 worlds in a momentary state of existence, and 3,000 worlds in a momentary state of existence. It is non-substantial in that these are static because they are temporary and they are constantly in motion like the universe. Now let's take this thing in a common sense way that you can understand what I'm saying. Right now, at the time of this lecture, there's an election going on in America, and the #1 candidate for a while was Donald Trump. Now, Donald Trump is worth, he says, $10 billion net. Now, in Buddhism, Buddhism teaches us that there is the law of non-substantiality. That is not a law. He just temporarily got $10 billion. You get Donald Trump 20 more years, and Donald Trump is probably not going to be living no more. Because who you born with, you're going to go through the phenomena of birth, growth, maturity, and death, or all phenomena go through the 10 aspects. That is, Donald Trump appeared with the money. He appeared on the earth. He got a nature. He got an entity. He got a power. He got an influence. And the reason he got that money because of an inherent cause. And because he got an inherent cause, he got a relationship with money. And because of the relationship, he got what is called a latent effect. And then a latent effect produces a manifest effect. And then you got a consistency of beginning to the end. So very quickly, that is explaining the mutually inclusive relationship of single moment of life and all phenomena. Now, let's take this thing further. Now, Nichiren says in the Ghost Show, he says life at each moment encompasses the body and mind and self and environment of all sentient beings in the 10 worlds, as well as insentient beings in the 3,000 realms, including plants, sky, earth, and even the minutest particles of dust. Life at each moment permeates the entire realm of phenomena and is revealed in all phenomena. Now, he says to be awakened to this principle is itself the mutually inclusive relationship of life at each moment and phenomena. So Nichiren simply just explains to us about the mutual inclusive relationship between life and all phenomena. Now, this is the part where you who are learning Buddhism need a bit of help. The Lotus Sutra teaches that life encompasses sentient beings and insentient beings. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the concept of sentient beings and insentient beings is a very heavy concept in Buddhism because it is a concept like Star Trek or a concept like Steve Jobs. Now, let's break down sentient beings and insentient beings. Now, the late Steve Jobs understood better than most people the concept of sentient beings and insentient beings. The Lotus Sutra teaches us that life manifests as sentient beings. It means having sensory organs to reproduce. Now, I told him, I said, now son, within this shoe is Buddhism. Now, Buddhism that we teach comes from the Lotus Sutra. Now, it is the Lotus Sutra that explains the mutually inclusive relationship of all phenomena. So all phenomena is all included in one single aspect or in a single momentary state of existence. Now, let's look at this Adidas shoe here. Now, I said, son, the 10 aspects exist in this shoe. And I think you know some of those 10 aspects. What are they? Try to call them out.
Appearance.
Slow down. Appearance.
Appearance. Entity.
No. Appearance. Nature.
Nature. Entity.
Appearance. Nature. And entity.
Right.
All right. Then, okay, appearance, nature, entity.
I don't know them all in order.
Then, all right. But then, because it's appearance and nature and entity, that shoe got a what? Power.
Power.
Right?
Right.
And then that shoe has a what? Influence.
Right.
Now, within this Adidas shoe is what? An inherent cause. Right?
Right.
Then because it has an inherent cause, what?
Effect.
No, you got a relationship.
Relationship.
See, this shoe got a relationship to you. Right? That's a relationship. Now, it also has what? A latent effect.
Right.
Now, what we mean about latent effect? See, when you put these shoes on and you run into a track meet
Right.
and you get smoked,
Right.
then this shoe going to bring out the world of hell.
Right.
Right?
Right.
But, on the other hand, if you get the track meet and you win, then you're going to go into the world of rapture, or the world of heaven. So, Buddhism is actually everyday life. With you, some Buddhism. Now, you know, in the teachings or writings of Nichiren Shonin, the first Go Show, the first letter that he wrote, is called On Attaining Buddhahood. Now, what he says on Attaining Buddhahood, he says, Nichiren Shonin, who was born in 13th century Japan, he says, the Lotus Sutra is the king of sutras, true and correct in both word and principle. Its words are the ultimate reality, and this reality is the mystic law. Myoho. It is called a mystic law because it reveals the principle of the mutually inclusive relationship of a single moment of life in all phenomena. Whoa. Let's go back on that now. It does what? It reveals the principle of the mutually inclusive relationship of a single moment of life in all phenomena. Now, see, a single moment of life, or the mutually single moment of life, kind of gets confusing because the past, the present, and the future exist in a single momentary state of existence. For example, you talk about the shoe.
Right.
The shoe has what? A latent effect.
Right.
So something in that shoe has not even happened yet, but it is going to happen. Right. That's the mutually inclusive relationship of life and phenomena. Now, let's go further. It says, life at each moment encompasses the body, that's the body, and mind, and self. That's how you see yourself, and environment. That's around it, right? Of all sentient beings in the 10 worlds, and all insentient beings in the 3,000 realms, including plants, sky, earth, and even the minutest particles of dust. Now, let's break that down. You know, you and I have been talking about this, and you're 15 years old in the 9th grade. Now, we're talking about sentient beings and insentient beings. So now, explain to the people what I talked. What's a sentient being?
Sentient being, living, such as you and I, or a plant, or even a fruit, same thing. Insentient being would be my phone, such as.
That's an insentient being.
My phone, I'm not finna. Without this, my day is kind of ruined.
Right.
What else is insentient being? This book, things around us, basically insentient beings. It's not living, but they have a purpose.
Or they have an influence or powers. And understand, all phenomena in the universe has 10 aspects.
Right.
That is, an appearance, a nature, an entity, a power, an influence, inherent cause, a relationship. Then it's got a relationship, a latent effect, a manifest effect, and a consistent beginning to the end. So when you look at phenomena from the standpoint of the 3,000 worlds and a momentary state of existence, now you're getting off into the teachings of Shakyamuni Buddha or the Lotus Sutra.
Right.
So it was Nichiren in Japan who introduced or reintroduced the teachings of the Lotus Sutra.
Right.
But now we have relationships. See, in life, when you look at the cosmos, you have to look at life from the standpoint of insentient and sentient beings. See, just like you and I are talking, well, we're two sentient beings talking, right? But you have a relationship with sentient beings, like this couch. This is a sentient being, but I got a relationship with it. Got a relationship with this picture. Got a relationship. So we have a relationship with insentient beings. So insentient beings affect our life. So
some more than others.
Huh?
Some more than others.
Yeah. For example,
my phone.
Your phone. That's what?
That's an insentient being.
Your computer.
Insentient.
But that is a life. That is a life form.
Yeah.
See, so when you understand Buddhism, Buddhism explains life from the standpoint of sentient and insentient beings, and you look at the three realms of past, present, and future. Right. So all of this exists in a single momentary state of existence. So when you begin to study Buddhism, then you look at life and the universe a little different, because you have to be inclusive of time and space. Nichiren teaches us, based on this Gosho, that these Japanese sects are not practicing the correct Buddhism. And this is what Nichiren says about that. He says, nevertheless, even though you chant and believe in Myoho Renge-kyo, if you think the law is outside yourself, you are embracing not the mystic law, but an inferior teaching. Inferior teaching means those other than this Lotus Sutra, which are all expedient and provisional. No expedient or provisional teaching leads directly to enlightenment. And without a direct path to enlightenment, you cannot attain Buddhahood, even if you practice lifetime after lifetime for countless kalpas. Attaining Buddhahood in this lifetime is then impossible, unquote. The SGI, Nichiren Shoshu, Nichiren Shu, got people chanting Myoho Renge-kyo or non-Myoho Renge-kyo, but they teach Buddhism other than the Lotus Sutra, where one seeks the law outside themselves. SGI members, Daisaki Keita is no Buddha, nor is he the law. Nichiren Shoshu members, the Daigo Hanzen is outside yourself and not the Lotus Sutra. Nichiren Shu teachings the foolishness like the Vedic culture of promoting Sanskrit and extricating black history and culture. This is not only racist, this is provisional, and no such provisional teachings lead to enlightenment. Nichiren further writes, you must never think that any of the 80,000 sacred teachings of Shakyamuni Buddha's lifetime or any of the Buddhists and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions of three existences are outside yourself. Your practice of the Buddhist teachings will not relieve your suffering of birth and death in the least unless you perceive the true nature of your life. If you seek enlightenment outside yourself, then you're performing even 10,000 practices and 10,000 good deeds will be in vain. Black people, let me explain. Those of you who live in our communities, as myself in Memphis, seeking Buddhism outside your own life is seeking Buddhism outside your self. Now, if you live in a culture, most of us have our black music stations, we have our black communities, and most of us live in a particular culture. This particular culture that we live, that is our life. And Buddhism should be expressed with your life. Now, when you allow some Japanese to come into your neighborhood, take you out of your culture, extricate all your culture from the teachings, and you are not yourself, that is looking for Buddhism outside yourself. This is how Nichiren explains it. Quote, if you seek enlightenment outside yourself, then you're performing even 10,000 practices and 10,000 good deeds will be in vain. It is like the case of a poor man who spends night and day counting his neighbor's wealth, but gains not even a coin. The Lotus Sutra teaches you that it is okay to be yourself and not dominated by any person or any culture. It is very outright low down and mean-spirited for the Japanese to take you out of your culture and they do not respect your culture and your history. This is why they extricate all the black history. Now, Nichiren writes that this sort of thing is harmful. And he writes, quote, that is why Tentai School's commentary states, quote, unless one perceives the nature of one's life, one cannot eradicate one's grave offenses. This passage implies that unless one perceives the nature of one's life, one's practice will become an endless, painful austerity. Therefore, such students of Buddhism are condemned as non-Buddhists. Great concentration and insight states that although they study Buddhism, their views are no different from those of non-Buddhists, unquote. Many of you SCI, Nichiren Shoshu, and Nichiren Shu African Americans, you are practicing a painful, endless austerity because you are looking outside of yourself. Nichiren writes, now, whether you chant the Buddha's name, that's not your own Gikyo, recite the sutra, or merely offer flowers and incense, all your virtuous acts will implant benefits and roots of goodness in your life. With this conviction, you should strive in faith. The Valamakutri Sutra states that when one seeks the Buddha's emancipation in the minds of ordinary beings, one finds that ordinary beings are the entities of enlightenment and that the serpents of birth and death are nirvana. It also states, if the minds of living beings are impure, their land is also impure. But if the minds are pure, so is their land. There are not two lands, pure or impure in themselves. The difference lies solely in the goods or evil of our minds. So for us to have a pure mind of faith, a pure and honest heart, that is what makes it. It's not because you're going to see some Daigo Hansen or you with some priest in a robe. Nichiren further writes, he says, when deluded, one is called an ordinary being, but when enlightened, one is called a Buddha. This is similar to a tarnished mirror that will shine like a jewel when polished. A mind clouded by the illusions of innate darkness of life is like a tarnished mirror, but when polished, it is sure to become like a clear mirror, reflecting the essential nature of phenomena and the true aspect of reality. Arouse deep faith and diligently polish your mirror day and night. How should you polish it? Only by chanting Nam Mu Yoho Renge Kyo. To my Nichiren friend, it is not the Daigo Hanza. That is the way to Buddhahood. The Daigo Hanza is no way to Buddhahood. The way to Buddhahood, as Nichiren teaches, is to the Lotus Sutra. Nichiren concludes this Gosho by saying, the Lotus Sutra is the king of sutras, the direct path to enlightenment, for it explains that the entity of our life, which manifests either good or evil at each moment, is in fact the entity of the mystic law. He says, if you chant Yoho Renge Kyo with deep faith in this principle, you are certain to attain Buddhahood in this lifetime. That is why the sutra states, and this is why the sutra states, he said, quote, and this was Shakyamuni, after I have passed into extinction, one should accept and uphold this sutra. Such a person assuredly and without doubt will attain the Buddha way. Unquote. Never doubt in the slightest. Nichiren. So Shakyamuni Buddhists want you to uphold the Lotus Sutra. He ain't to uphold no Daigo Hanza, uphold no Japanese, but uphold the Lotus Sutra.
Get up! Get up! Get up! Get up! Get up! Get up!
When it comes to religion, I got to be me. I practice religion that makes me free. I don't live by no 10 commandments. I am no fan of this. I move through time and space and travel intergalactic. My thinking is elastic. When it comes to religion, I'm the coolest, I'm the smoothest and the cutest. I'm the proud black Buddhist. I don't practice no Asian religion. I would never make such a decision. Just because you are Asian and bald-headed and wear a robe, I'm supposed to be home? Brother, you got me in the mix. I am universal. When it comes to religion, I'm the coolest, I'm the smoothest, smoothest. I am the proud black Buddhist. Nam-myoho-renge-kyo is the way to make the karma go. Nam-myoho-renge-kyo.